Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on Monday, June 27th, 2016. It's 01:32 in the morning, Eastern Time. This might be a long one. It might not be. Who knows? Earlier in the day, essentially more to the point, just before and just after I got back from church this morning, yesterday morning now, uh, uh, every every time I would click the arrow on my screen, I'd get, and this wasn't me right clicking or double or control clicking on a Mac. I would get one of these little pop down, either drop down or pop up menus that you often get. And whether you get, that's how you get the pop up menus. That would overlay itself right on the area in which I was trying to click. For example, if you were interacting with Tumblr, if you wanted to express a like, you'd get this pop-up menu, and so forth. Not 100% of the time, and it wasn't just in Tumblr. It was in the various websites that I went to. You would do it on the weather, for example. I would do the same thing on the weather. Or if I went to the Wall Street Journal to read something that would be, which would be available as opposed to a subscription, and in the Daily Mail. I mean, just everywhere. And the computer was noticeably slower. Okay, well, I ran my antivirus program, Bitdefender, Bitdefender Plus, Virus Scanner Plus. I guess goes by both names. And it found three things. Two were these adware things, and one was something that must have come in over Chrome. That was associated with the browser. Which I don't know exactly what that. When they give you the URL for it or an identifier for it, and I didn't really one of the things that kept coming up was if I was watching some video material, and you just click to skip ahead, in the video. You'd get, this was very interesting. You had right up the top says JW Player, and then get official or licensed version. And then there were some things, and then there was like a line underneath it said talked about Flash Player. Now those aren't the same outfits, as far as I understand. Flash Player is from Adobe. Some websites are called JW Player, nothing but a purveyor of malware. I don't know if that's the case or not, but now I've seen sites importuning me to install JW Player before, but I've never knowingly done so. Now this is just odd, and so I ran the antivirus software about four times over the next 2 hours. Hell, 3 hours. I mean, this basically just sort of brought me to a halt because essentially I couldn't really use the machine the way I wanted to use the machine. and then finally I did what my first thought was in the morning before I even left for church. I said, I just need to do the big CPU reset. Hold down the power button for 15 seconds. Do the shift control option, hold down at the same time you press the power button down to turn it back on for about another 5-10 seconds. Wait for about 5-10 seconds and then hit the power button. And then that resets the CPU. And when it came back on, thankfully, all was well. None of that stuff was happening anymore. There you go, Apple. There's something to work on, or figure out, or stop from ever happening. I thought Apple had updated their operating system, or there had been some new updates to various applications, but there weren't. Well, at least according to the little Apple site. So this afternoon, just shortly before 3 o'clock Eastern time, started Skyping with Tony Pincham over in Worksop, Nottinghamshire, the UK. And then later on, for about an hour or so, Tony from Seattle chimed in, and we talked. I think we talked till about. Well, I think I finally got off the horn with everybody about just a hair before 7 o'clock in the evening. And it's always great fun. Always great fun. And of course, Tony Pincham and I have been talking a lot about the referendum on the European Union over there in the UK. Now he's never told me how he voted, but I did say to him, now sort of like now it can be told that I had a say in the fight. Had I had a dog in this fight, I would have voted to leave. Largely as a matter of on the basis of not the economic stuff, because I think eventually that's all going to pan out pretty neutrally over 2 or 3 years. But just the sovereignty issue, Parliament, the UK Parliament can no longer make laws that, in some cases, won't be overridden by the European Union, and a lot of times not by the European Union Parliament, but by just these unelected regulatory bureaucratic commissions. And plus, in some cases, they have a fairly different, well, not a fairly different, but a logistically different attitude toward just how you can take control of your own borders and your own country and administer your own laws. I think the prime example was they had this. The UK had this nutbag preacher that was advocating, violent terroristic acts, and they couldn't deport him because they said it would violate his civil rights or some such thing. Now, I will say, having said that, there's a lot of difference between the United States law and the UK law, or the the British law, UK law, they have. So they say they have a constitution. Well, it's an unwritten constitution. A constitution that consists of very closely followed customs and habits that gradually change over the years. But during at any given period, there's a huge consensus of how people should behave under this constitution. I think the prime example of that is David Cameron saying he's going to resign. Now U.S. presidents and members of Congress, lose political support all the time in other houses, in other branches of government, but they never resign. It's short of major criminal misbehavior, and even then they don't necessarily resign. So there's a different ethic, and then it also has to do with speech laws. Our Bill of Rights. Now, while admittedly they have some hate crime, thought crime type laws in federal law, and some states have some of those things too, it prohibits a behavior that is thought to incite potential violence. It's not, it doesn't preemptively prohibit speech or of course, and speech and freedom of the press are often conflated together. They're different things. Yelling fire in a crowded theater is not the same thing as publishing a very vituperative, violent political piece in a press, in a piece of writing, say in a newspaper or a pamphlet or book. That cannot be prohibited ahead of time, even if it comes to the revealing of national intelligence secrets. Publication can't be preemptively blocked. I think it can be over in the UK. So we have some different ways of conducting our public business. I'm not saying which is better, which is worse. On the whole, though, I'll opt for a written constitution any day, because I don't depend on human nature that well. I don't trust human nature to be that honest a lot of the times. I think there's a general level of integrity over there that we don't have here, or at least we certainly don't actively demonstrate over here. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Yeah, so it's fun. It's fun. Again, like I say, I have no idea how Tony Pynchon voted. Well, I can't say that. I sort of have an idea, but he's never said, and I'm not going to ask, obviously. So, awake, the trumpet's blowing. Da 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 da. I read in church yesterday at 8 o'clock. Unusually, we had a baptism at the 8 o'clock service. We usually have those things at 10:30 because it's kind of a bigger do, and there's more people and so forth. But no, we had one of the families that comes to 8 o'clock. They had that couple, one of the couples, particular couple, had their friends had a daughter, and they named this couple that have been coming to our 8 o'clock service for the last month or two or three, godparents. And so the young girl, she probably looked to be about maybe 3 weeks old. Um, her first name was Sylvie, not Sylvia, Sylvie. Was baptized, and I do like baptisms. I mean, they're well, it's on so many levels. Um, but this is my second one that I'd done with this Highland fellow, or had served at, or lectored at, or whatever. And so I sort of knew his routine, and I knew what sort of surprises he'd pull, and so I anticipated everything, and so at least from my standpoint, my part, it went off very smoothly, and I think basically from everybody's standpoint, it went off smoothly. And the kid was fairly well behaved. She only squalled a little bit for about a minute and a half, and yeah, no, it's always good. I mean, it's you can feel the palpable presence of the Holy Ghost there, I'll tell you, that's for sure. Then got home, not got home, well, I did get home, thank God, and I sort of futzed around. Well, actually, I futzed around for a while trying to get this computer to work, and then by that time it was pretty much time to talk to the Tonys, the two Tonys, one, and then the collectively, and I got up at 11:30 and woke up, and I said, I haven't eaten. I need to eat some food, so I had a little late supper, and I looked at a couple of these old TV shows from the late 70s and mid 80s. Taxi, and what's the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and Bob Newhart Show, and all those things deal collectively with the workplace and people interacting in the workplace with both each other and their superiors. And then I got thinking about, of course, when I was working, and who of my colleagues I would let do anesthesia on me and who I absolutely would not. I think that story may be best left to another time, and only in the case of those those whom I would let work on me, I'll give their names. But it was interesting to think back on that for a while as I was in that that half awake, half asleep state there as you're sort of waking up, or trying to go back to sleep, and I couldn't, so I got up and I made this. So I think on that note, I'll say bye-bye, YouTubers. Paul's off tomorrow and on Tuesday, and my son's up in Ashland University doing a week-long graduate course, and the Eruptor CK, my grandson, has uploaded 2 recent videos. Excuse me, and it's always, well, for me, it's always fun to watch the Eruptor CK. So I'll say bye-bye, YouTubers.